The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff and management of WWDB-TV.
Y'all ready for this? For reasons unexplained.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff and management of WWDB-TV.
Booyah! We are back. It is Wednesday, last Wednesday in August. It is actually 5:30 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, which means it's time for another installment of Southern Nevada Sports News coming to you from WWDBTV.com. My name is Bill Miller, co-host along with
Jeff Belknap.
And it is awfully good to be back in the saddle again after a brief hiatus.
Took a little week off. It's always good.
Yeah, always good. And, of course, Big John, engineer honcho on the engineering board. That's right. And it is definitely no figment of your imagination. We do have an in-studio guest. And once again, we'd like to welcome Ben Rowden. And who's
I've heard worse.
who's been also known as the Beard. And Ben of Rowden's Reels. And Ben, it's really good to have you back.
Great to be back. I appreciate you guys having me.
And the timing is excellent because high school football is in full swing.
Absolutely. We started 2 weeks ago. They had kind of a week zero, or a couple teams had games, and then last week was really the official kickoff of the high school season. Everybody played their first, at least their first game. Some had their second game, and we saw some big moments last weekend, and maybe some surprises in the area as well.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. Well,
Big surprise.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a mammoth surprise.
Yeah.
In the southwest part of town.
Yep.
Not a great start. Let's just go ahead and put it out there for a couple of the local private schools, and one particular big one in Bishop Gorman.
Yeah, Bishop Gorman had Mater Dei. It was Mater Dei was the national champions last year in high school football out of Santa Ana, California. They were actually the ones who ended Bishop Gorman's 55-game win streak last year. They went on to go undefeated. Their junior quarterback left early from their high school and is now going to start as a true freshman at USC this year, JT Daniels.
Yeah, I saw that.
They're a factory right now. People that think Bishop Gorman puts out some talent, I've never seen talent on a high school football field like you saw with Mater Dei. We might see something similar with Liberty bringing in IMG Academy. They've got similar type talent, but it was pretty impressive to see the type of talent after, again, all the kids that they graduated last year to still have so many returning this year. It was pretty impressive.
So they have a quarterback this year starting at USC. Isn't their quarterback currently also committed to USC?
He is. He just committed now. He's a junior. He
Right.
transferred in from another California school. Mater Dei does actually do a lot of transfers, pretty much in all of their sports, but in football especially. He transferred from another Southern California school, Bryce Young, electric player. Just really pretty amazing in person to watch. Doesn't look like he's moving or working really hard, and just goes by everybody. But it was pretty impressive to see. But yeah, he just committed as well. Now he'll be 2 years behind,
Right.
so it'll be a good stagger for USC. So yeah, their future recruiting wise is pretty bright already.
So your boys, UCLA, better step up.
Oh, they will. Trust me.
We'll have Dorian about the same
Yeah,
time over at
yeah,
USC.
the Bruins are going to have a tough first year under Chip Kelly, but just you wait. My Bruins are going to come sailing through in the next 2 to 3 years.
You hear that, George?
Yeah.
I like what UCLA's doing as well. I'm curious to see if Dorian's going to get the start. It sounds like it's actually between him and Wilton Spate from
Yep.
Michigan.
Yeah.
I actually coached against Wilton in Richmond, Virginia. I guess this would be 6 or 7 years ago now. So I saw him as a true sophomore back in high school. So he's kind of made the rounds now, having started a bunch of games for Michigan and now going out to UCLA battling for that job. I do think Dorian's a much better fit for Chip Kelly's offense. So it'll be interesting to see how UCLA does this year in his first year.
Well, not only that, but Spate has some injury tendencies, I guess the best way to put it.
And he's a true, pocket quarterback. He has good mobility for his size, but he's a 6'5", tall pocket passer.
He's
so.
a big one.
Yeah.
He is an absolute big one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm a SoCal guy, and so modern day I'm very familiar with.
Yeah.
Following a lot of prep sports, and for years now they have been a real pipeline as far as USC is concerned. And I think a lot
Matt
of
Barkley, I think Mark Sanchez as well, and a couple
Also came out
quarterbacks,
of
obviously,
Modern
and
Day,
then position players as well.
Yeah, and hats off to Gorman for they certainly didn't dodge a cupcake by any sense of the imagination, but very tough loss. I mean,
When you jump right out and take on the number 2 school in the country, I mean that's ballsy.
And Modern Day had played the week before against a pretty decent program in, I forget who they played actually, but another Southern California program. So they had a game, Bishop Amat. They ended up having to forfeit that game because of an ineligible player for Modern Day, but they throttled Amat. So they're, a strong
42
program.
to 14 or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
And these are pretty tough Jesuit schools. I mean,
Yeah.
Bishop Amat. I mean, Bishop. God, my God. Even going back to the schools up north, Concord de La Salle.
Yep.
California has a lot of Catholic schools that are real powerhouses.
Yeah.
And when I moved here, I was, people were trying to tell me, oh, well, you're Gorman. Yeah, they're like the modern day of Nevada. And so it's, but again, I think that most people were just, it was 14-0, I believe, at the half.
Yeah.
It was 14-0, and it actually was within yards of being 14-7. Bishop Gorman was going in
And
at
they
the end of
went
the
for
half,
it.
and it was 4th and goal. They
Yeah.
went for it, missed it. Had they made that play, it would have been 14-7 going into half. And then coming out of half, what happened was Modern Day got the ball back within 3 plays. It was a broken play, missed coverage. They scored within 3 plays, 21-0. Then the wheels kind of fell off a little bit, but even towards the end, Gorman was competing hard. They're not going anywhere. They lost to a very, very, very good program. And
Absolutely.
the score was definitely not quite as indicative, but if anybody thinks that Gorman's going to be a pushover this year, they're still in for a little bit of a shock. So we'll see how they play out the rest
Not
of the
a
non-conference
chance.
schedule.
It's a quality program.
So wait, so you're saying that the Vegas teams are an icy blood type of scenario? They're not gonna
I
have
hope
it?
so. I actually want that. I want that for those other schools. So
I
maybe
do
it's
too,
good for
yeah.
them to smell a little bit of blood in the water. I just think that they make sure they they have to still prepare for it, because it's not going to
Absolutely.
be any sort of easy year just
Yeah.
because Gorman got
If-
beat by a very good out-of-state program.
Yeah, and not everyone, obviously, they're not going to face a Modern Day every week.
Right.
I don't think there's another Modern Day in Las Vegas.
No.
But
No.
there's definitely, I think there are going to be a lot more, closer scores.
Yeah.
When teams line up against
Well, and the
them.
big one, obviously, the big little brother in town is Liberty, and they've
Absolutely.
been going up against Gorman these last few years, and they went down to Seguro and beat a very, very good Arizona program. I think were repeat or back-to-back 5A
Yep.
champions
Yep.
down in Arizona.
Yep.
They were a nationally ranked team, and now Liberty's, I think, only 3 or 4 places behind Gorman in the national rankings. So now they're trying to close
creeping
that
up.
gap. So
Yeah.
and then we see programs like Faith Lutheran going out of state. They brought in Christian Valor out of Colorado.
Right.
Jeff was at that game. They also didn't fare
Another
too well, but
difficult
that's
loss.
again
Yeah.
that's a program with unbelievable talent coming through it. The McCaffrey brothers we were talking about. We even know about the 4th one that went through there
Yeah.
as well. But yeah,
Well, you brought that up to me, and so I was talking about the quarterback and how this guy was good, and and then Ben's like, "Oh, you're talking about Luke McCaffrey?" And I'm like, "Wait a second, what just happened here?" So I'm at the game. I had no idea that this was Luke McCaffrey, and that was probably my own not, doing my research on the game, which I apologize. I do have a full-time gig. This is for fun, but this kid's good. He scrambles very well. He threw some dimes. He made a nice run, a 50-something yard run for a touchdown, and really made the defense look slow. So, I mean, that was kind of like when he was running, I was like, okay, come on, get it. And it just didn't happen. But not only that, but they just really, from me watching the game, they just really ran the ball down the throat of Faith. They just kept running and running and running. And it was almost like they could even get a breath, and they just kept pounding and pounding him and pounding. Their running back, number 7, quality running back, he had a punt return for a touchdown on top of the probably over 100 yards he had rushing as well. So, not a shot or anything against Faith. It was a little bit of a mismatch, especially on the line. The McCaffrey had plenty of time to throw the ball. I mean, I probably could have stood back there and threw a couple balls. So that'll tell you something. But it was it was a difficult test for them, but it's the type of test that you have to take in order to get better, and that's what these Vegas teams are doing. They're taking the next step to play better teams.
Yeah, we saw Arborview go out of state. We've seen Legacy go out of state. We've seen a couple teams in state bringing in out of state competition in these early weeks. And again, it's the only really is the only way to get better. With only having 30 to 35 schools in the Vegas area, you do get that familiarity with each other, and so you have to kind of get outside your area to test yourselves and to really compete against others. To see where you stack up as Nevada football.
Well, what I'm seeing is like these young guys are. It seems like they're a lot more spread out. Like in years past, say 5 years ago, these teams would be so top heavy. A team like Gorman, because everyone wanted to go there. Now what you're seeing is these same kids that played ball with the Gorman kids are now on Desert Pines, or now on Liberty, and now on Legacy, for example. And so you're seeing the competition is like starting really at a younger age. These guys are playing together from 10 to 14 years old, and then they're splitting up and going to other high schools and playing.
It's the argument really for the Bishop Gorman Monster, right? There's definitely some arguments against having a top-heavy program like that in an area, but the arguments for is that it brings up the rest of the competition. Liberty, they've brought up huge in the last 5-6 years with Coach Morocco. Obviously, what Coach Fox is doing over at Faith Lutheran, up in Arborview, even over at Legacy, and some of the what we might have considered mid-tier programs, and now they're not only competing, but they're putting out Division I talent, Division II and III talent as well.
Yeah.
But to your point as well, the youth programs, the 7-on-7 leagues, they're all getting better because kids either want to go to Gorman or they want to beat Gorman.
That's right.
Right? So either way, you've got to
There's
get
nothing in
good to
between.
do either one. Yeah.
Nothing in between. But you touch bases on the fact that now a lot of the public schools are not avoiding going out of state. We're very fortunate. We're going to have Gus McNair, the head coach of Canyon Springs.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
If he can get out of practice, we're open.
And we know this is a tough time of year to book high school coaches.
Yeah, they're busy.
But this Friday they're heading up to Orem, Utah, to play the Pioneers up there, and that team is ranked number 2 in the state and number 29 in the country.
I believe they have a Division I receiver, kind of a top 10 or top 20 type receiver kid
Yes.
up there. They come down to Gorman the next week, and that's another game that's kind of a watch-out game for Gorman. So, yeah, Canyon Springs definitely has their work cut out going up there and playing up there.
Absolutely. And but I like the idea that the public schools are now taking these road trips and playing very tough programs, and and of course Orem, the Tigers have really just been this monster program. I'm not even sure who's number 1 in Utah.
I think it's probably Bingham.
Bingham, I
Bingham.
believe.
They
Yeah,
were last
they're the
year.
highest rank in the
Yeah.
top
Yeah.
25.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but hats off to Coach McNair.
yeah,
And and go get them. We wish you absolute luck, and hopefully you'll be calling in
Hopefully,
later on.
yep.
And then we have some other good programs coming into town next week with the Polynesian Classic. That's another good program or a good event that just was started last year. And
Yeah.
They brought in some great teams last year. Kahuka out of Hawaii, Bingham
yeah.
down from Utah. They were both top 25 programs in the nation. Liberty played in that. Now this year, they're not playing at Sam Boyd. They're going to play at the home high school stadiums, which is probably better for the atmosphere.
Sure, absolutely.
But IMG Academy's coming in. They're ranked. You're usually in the top 2 or 3, and there's an argument that they're the best team in the country every year. Even when Gorman was winning those national championships, there's an argument that IMG was just as good. They're that type of program. So that's obviously a great team to see. A couple teams coming in from Utah. Gorman's not even a part of the Polynesian Classic. They have Orem coming in. So there's lots of good out-of-state
Liberty
teams
High
coming in
is,
as well.
and,
Yeah, that's the big
yeah,
one.
that's
That's
the
the
big
big one.
It's going to be. And hats off to Coach Morocco. You're going to take on this top tier program in the year that your four-year starting quarterback leaves. That's kind of a tough shot. You
Yeah.
got the same guy there for 4 years.
It's not like he left early for the NFL. They knew he was.
No.
They knew
Yeah.
Kenyon was leaving, so
Yeah,
they could plan for that.
From what I understand, I've read the write-ups on that, and shout out to Dylan Fedor, the kicker, he got the player of the game, kicked a couple long field goals. This kid's a little guy, but he's kicking the ball 50 yards,
Yeah.
making 50-yard field goals.
Yeah, I saw some practice videos. He's got a nice little leg on him.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had him on the show about 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
Yeah, 3 weeks ago. And
And his dad's great, man.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah. And
a lot of
they
fun,
really
man.
are.
A lot of fun.
Good to see that early success.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what's really, other than that, it's like when you see these teams, and I went to the Socorro game last year, And it was a very competitive game, even though they won the game by a couple of scores. It was very competitive all the way to the end, and the Arizona team just did not give up. I mean, you could tell that they were there to win. Liberty pulled it out. I was kind of thinking, when you do a home and home like that, that Arizona team is going to be thinking about payback, and Liberty was able to hold them off, especially in the fourth quarter, which was huge.
Yeah, especially with the other two local teams, bringing in those big programs in Faith and Bishop Gorman not doing so well. It was really nice to see Liberty pull it out. I think Arborview also won out of state, and then
Valencia.
Foothill won up in Reno. I think they were.
Yeah,
up
and
in
I
Reno
believe
won.
that even there was one more school that played.
Yeah, I thought there was one that I'm missing as well that went out of state and won. I think
I
we were
can't
3
believe-
and 2 out of state is
I'm
what
terrible.
it was last
I
week.
can't believe I
with,
can't remember that.
maybe the two big ones,
Yeah.
going down, but.
But that's okay. I mean, because basically what's happening is you're seeing a transition of Las Vegas football. You're seeing these kids that are now can kind of see that they can make it. Where when we were, I was watching this, 10 years ago, the high school football 10 years ago, you were never hearing Las Vegas football in D1 in the same sentence. Now you're talking about, 15 to 20 guys, that are going. And now that people are getting recognized, it's like, wow, this guy's good too. And then they're seeing a teammate and like, man, this guy's good. So we have Jacob, who's going to Michigan State. And then the guy just playing right next to him, Bo Taylor, playing right next to him. And the next thing you know, he's committed to UCLA. So they're seeing the talent.
I think Jacob just got released. He's on the 2 deep for Michigan State's roster, which
Okay.
is impressive for a
That's
program
great.
that's expecting to have a very good season and a great D line coming back.
Yep.
I'm not sure if Speedy Naylor's where he's at in the depth chart up there, but I'm sure he's going to do some things. It's fun to see kids from the area go around, and then you get to watch them and look for them on Saturdays.
Yeah.
We were talking about some of the kids from Desert Pines and some of the talent
Yeah.
that they have over there. And the fact that they're going all over. Unfortunately, they did have one of their own players went over transferred to IMG.
Yep.
But again, it's a kid that you're going to be seeing on Saturdays playing around the country. So it's fun to be able to watch that.
Well, I mean, you're saying that. You said that about Naylor and Jacob. But you're talking about a team that I think had 18 starters out of 22 players returning. Michigan State is probably the sleeper, if not going to win that side of the division. And you're talking about Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, and Michigan State on that side. That's some serious talent.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then what I'm watching is, we were talking a little bit about Luke McCaffrey earlier. He signed a commitment letter with Nebraska. Nebraska's loading up with these kids too now. So
Scott
you're
Frost,
looking at
homeboy coming home.
Yeah.
Homegrown boy coming back.
Yeah, so you're looking at these guys that are loading up on these players, and maybe not this year, but you're going to see these guys in the next couple of years, like you said.
Yeah,
playing
we
on
talked
Saturday.
about it with Dorian possibly having a chance to start this year.
Right.
Bo heading out next year. The kid Elijah, what's Elijah's last name from Arborview that's over at UCLA as well, or did he end up transferring? There's kids all over, which I love. I love having to go back online and be like, all right, who am I forgetting about?
Yeah.
Who else is around? But the other thing I think you see is when you start seeing, even as especially as non-Gorman kids start going Division I, as younger players start seeing that, they now see an opportunity to go, whether it's Division I, II, or III, for college football. Now, coming in as a freshman, I know I have to pay attention to my grades, right?
Oh, yeah.
Whereas in the past, I just want to play high school football. College football is not an option. You might not pay attention to all those other aspects of high school that also need to get you into college.
Yeah.
So it really feeds into the overall student athlete of having better sports in the area.
Absolutely. And we're talking about football right now, but this really does go across the board with basketball. I mean, because there's a bunch of kids now, especially at Clark's program, putting kids into D1 programs. Gorman obviously putting players up there. Finley Prep obviously putting players up there. But these guys are now like noticing, hey, there's a scout at the game. I'm going to ball out today. But now there's a scout at every game.
Yep.
Now there's people paying attention all the time. Now there's people Googling players when they're on huddle. They're doing searches for other players to look for these like diamonds in a rough, to a sense.
Yeah.
So it really, every game matters, every minute, everything that they're doing matters at this point,
Yeah.
which is great. I love it. So any games you're looking forward to? I mean, obviously you're traveling out of town.
Yeah, I'm traveling out of town with Gorman. One of the fortunate that I'm busy, but unfortunate things I don't get to spread my time around town to see as many programs. The Gorman game's actually interesting. We're heading down to Centennial, Arizona, and they have Tawi Walker, who was at Mojave last year. They were in the 4A or the 3A division or state Nevada finals against Desert Pines. He was probably the top returning running back in the state of Nevada. Ended up transferring down there. I think it mainly because he wanted to go to a little bit bigger school, play a little bit against some better competition. If he had transferred in city, he wouldn't have been able to been eligible this year.
Right.
So he's down there, and last week or his first 2 weeks, he's leading the team in rushing, receiving, touchdowns, points, pretty much everything across the board. So, we get to actually go down to Arizona just to see a Vegas boy play a little football against Gorman. So that's actually exciting. Liberty has another Utah team coming in this week, so they're playing another out-of-state team. I'm curious to see if they can continue it, right? To make sure that they don't see any letdowns. Seeing Gorman go down, having their own big win, make sure it's not a letdown game. Having IMG coming in next week, kind of a little bit of a trap game for them. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out and play as well.
I honestly think Morocco's going to be able to keep them.
I do too.
Their heads in the right spot. The one thing about Coach that I love is his humility, and he kind of just comes at just a certain level.
Yeah.
And I've seen him get fired up. I'm not saying he doesn't get fired up. I've seen it, but he has an expectation for them, and he helps the player get to that expectation. Where unlike some other coaches, we were talking a little bit. There are still coaches out there who still have a tendency to want to talk down to their players. That's not Coach Morocco. He gets the best out of his players because of the way that he treats them.
He does.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For sure. So that's going to be an interesting game. Any other games that you can think of that are going to be great? Or
Legacy at Centennial on Thursday night this week, right?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
Thursday Night Lights. So
Thursday Night Lights.
Yep. I was
Tomorrow
kind
night.
of wishing I was in town. I'd head out to that one myself to see Foster and see how Legacy bounces back. They had a tight loss early on, right? With week one that they went on the road. I believe they might have lost that early week. Close game,
yes.
but I think again they're going to have a good season. So that's another one to look forward to.
Well, I did give Amari a nickname, The Answer.
The Answer.
And he was all with it. He was
like
good
that.
with that. But this is a guy where I actually made a comment about him guarding the 6'7" DP,
Yeah.
tight end, and he said, "Yeah, bring it." And you're talking about a guy that's what 5'9".
Yeah,
maybe?
he's not very
Yeah.
big. He's not very big.
And this guy,
A lot of heart.
when you look at him size-wise, you're not thinking of like, wow, this guy's an exceptional football player, but he plays so above and beyond like his size that he's gonna make that play. He's gonna make that tackle. He's a sure tackler. He's gonna be able to defend. I mean, he covers like a glove, like literally. Exciting guys to watch.
Yeah, there's certain guys that when you show up to games, even if you don't know who they are ahead of time, they just kind of start popping out throughout the game, and you just keep noticing the same guy in on tackles or making plays on the offensive side of the ball, and they just keep jumping out. And he's definitely one of those players that'll just keep jumping out at you.
I love it, man. Any other players that you're really looking forward to?
Players in the area, I'm definitely still looking to see. Faith. They have a bye this week, but they've got some talent both on the offensive side of the ball with Gronauer. I'm looking forward to him coming back. Playing better offensively, but then defensively, their linebackers and secondary is pretty much as good as you're going to see in this area. I think you mentioned we were talking. They're up front, probably on both sides of the ball, is where they're going to struggle at times with teams, but. Secondary linebackers wise, there's not much better in the area. They have a bunch of Division I kids. EA's little brother, he's a USC commit as a sophomore. He was a freshman All-American last year. Hunter Capico, he was a sophomore last year, so now junior. Another kind of sophomore or junior All-American. They have some players over there, so that's another team I'm looking to see how they bounce back from a loss like that.
Well,
but they do have a bye this week.
Let me just preface it a little bit. The talent that they were playing against made a huge factor. So it wasn't like they were playing against somebody that wasn't very good and they played bad. They were playing against a line that was a really solid line. And I think when we first spoke, I feel like the defense kept them in that game. It could have gotten a lot worse. At some points they did have a couple goal line stands, and they had turn the ball over when Valor was going in to score. So it was just, and it wasn't really a bad game. It was a couple missed passes.
Right, you said they actually took their first drive in, scored,
Right.
had it called back, and then
Right down the field.
the other thing
very
I think
first
you
time.
mentioned was Faith had a linebacker that went down in the pregame.
Right.
They got hurt, and it kind of deflated the energy a bit before the game.
Jeez.
One of their starters goes down, before the game even starts, and that can be tough to get over as well.
Well, that and the pressure. I mean,
mentioned just the media.
There was media everywhere at that game. I mean, it seemed like everybody wanted to be there. So that's a lot of pressure for somebody that's 15 or 16 years old, maybe 17. So I think they'll bounce back. Vernon's a great coach. He's going to be able to keep those guys on track. So I'm looking forward to see what they're going to do as well. And I love watching them, because they're like literally 2 minutes from my office. So I love that.
Nice and easy.
Yeah, it's like I'm there. But so enjoy your trip.
Appreciate it.
And then obviously, how can people check out your highlights and everything you got going
just
on?
check out Rowden's Reels on YouTube. Pretty much post at least one game a week. This past week, we actually did a freshman and JV game for Gorman as well. So there's some highlights from all 3 levels against Mater Dei on there. This coming week, we actually start covering some youth football with TMT Elite. So the youth football season starts here as well, and I'm nice and busy, and it's football season, which is my favorite time of the year. So.
Yeah. Do you want to? So you do have I know we only have a couple more minutes, but we do. You have some other stuff. Do you mind plugging these other guys? I mean, I don't mind if you don't mind.
So TMT Elite's a youth program that I also covered last year. They were LV Elite and then TMT, Floyd Mayweather's youth program brand.
Right.
So they combined this year to kind of combine one team. They have six youth teams. I believe it's 7U, 8U, 10U, 12U, 14U. There's 6 different levels that they're going to be playing on Saturdays. So I'll be covering that. That's for the Nevada Youth Sports Association. And then obviously Gorman at the high school level. And I like to try to get around to some other sports and some other programs as well. So I'll be getting my way around.
So are they feeder for anybody in particular? Or
LV Elite was a feeder for Sierra Vista, so now it's going to be kind of a combined Sierra Vista. They also played their games over at Valley, which was Las Vegas High, but I think the kids will be pretty much from all over the Valley now, which is exciting.
Beautiful.
Good.
That's great.
Yeah, kind of spread the wealth.
Yep.
All right, Ben, thank you very much again.
Appreciate it, guys.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Always a friend of the show.
Good seeing you guys.
We
Of course.
look forward to having you in the future, and have a safe trip down to Arizona.
Thanks.
And you're gonna have to start, getting some more proteges in there, man. Because
More cameramen.
I'm trying.
with 32 local high schools in Clark County, you're gonna need.
And the problem with football, they all play on the same day.
Yeah.
Friday
so
Night
you
Lights.
literally
Right.
need that many guys.
All right. Ben Rowden, Rowden's Reels. We're going to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to switch gears. Southern Nevada Sports News coming to you from WWDBTV.com. We'll be right back.
The golf store you've been waiting for is now open. Bob Allen Golf is ready to help you take your game to the next level. Bob Allen Golf is located at 6415 South Fort Apache, Las Vegas 89148. Choose your favorite clubs from our selection of Bridgestone, Callaway, Cleveland, XXIO, Srixon, Ping, Wilson, and more. We'll custom fit them in our state-of-the-art full-swing golf simulator. Come hang out with us and practice on our putting green to find out which club is perfect for you. Have your clubs repaired, reshafted, and regripped in our on-site tour shop. And talk about accessories. Guys and gals will feel comfortable and look sharp in the many sizes, colors, and options of apparel from Greg Norman, Black Clover, Under Armour, and more. The team at Bob Allen Golf takes your game as seriously as you do. Join our online family at boballen.golf.com and stop in the store to meet us. Remember, at Bob Allen Golf, your game is in the bag.
Booyah! We are back. Round 2, the knockout round. Southern Nevada Sports News coming to you from WWDBTV.com. My name is Bill Miller, co-host along with
Jeff Belknap.
And if you're just joining us, unfortunately, you missed Ben Rowden of Rowden's Reels, our local high school highlight film videographer for high school sports in general here in Clark County as well. And do go on his Facebook and Twitter. It's Rowden's Reels.
Yep.
As well as Instagram.
That's right.
And he does some unbelievable video footage.
The highlights are fantastic. He's got the whole slow motion, the ball's in the air, and you see the guy jumping really slow, and he catches it, and then he takes off running like full speed. I love it.
It's really great stuff.
Yeah.
So, and luckily he's a friend of the show.
Absolutely.
And incredibly knowledgeable about high school football and athletes, and again, really touched bases on the fact that we're now officially, I think it's week 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the fact that Vegas teams are not ducking, the top tier programs, not just in state, I should say, as far as like locally here, but as well as in Utah, Arizona, and it continues. It's good to see these teams venturing out, especially the public schools. I think we always expect programs like Gorman to take off because of the size of the budget and the fact that they're very high profile and they play very high profile teams, as was the case last weekend against Mater Dei. I'm sure they're going to bounce back, but we're going to switch gears here now because we are knee deep, obviously, in Major League Baseball, and we're kind of closing in. I think right now teams are at about 133 games.
Yeah.
Between 133 135 games, so there's not much luck. And with the exception, unless Boston has an absolute meltdown,
it would take a serious meltdown.
It would. But as far as that, there is no division. That is done, wrapped up. I think this time we were just talking before we came back that the Astros had all but wrapped up the West by now, and instead, they are basically 2.5 games in front of Oakland A's, a very surprised team, and the Seattle is kind of backed off. They were kind of second place for a long time. They're now 8 games back, but again, it's considering what had happened in 2017. This is a very tight race.
Well, you just brought up something with Boston and talk about a meltdown. So I pulled up their schedule really quick. They play a 3-game series. This is at the end of this month, at the end of September. They play a 3-game series in New York against the Yankees. Then they go right to Cleveland to play a 3-game series. They come back, 3-game homestand against Baltimore, which should be easy. Then they finish up against the Yankees. So it could be interesting. Could get interesting at the end because
we can only hope.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even though it looks like that they have this huge lead, 6 games up or whatever they are against the Yankees, the fact that they're going to play each other 6 more times right at the end of the year is going to be interesting.
Well, it says a lot about the Yankees. They've won 84 games and they're in second place.
Yep. And the wild card, lead the wild card.
Yeah. And so it's and I think that we of course obviously speak with George a lot, and I do, and of course George has nothing good really to say about the Indians, although they are in first place.
Well, I mean, they're playing the crappiest division in baseball, probably.
And I think that has a lot to do with it. He doesn't look at that number, because they essentially have run away with the American League Central.
Yep.
They're 14 games up over Minnesota, who was playing much better baseball before the break.
Yeah.
And it's now kind of caved in.
Well, we do obviously have our Golden Steer bet.
Yes,
that we
do.
We can kind of do a little update. It looked for a while like Detroit was going to be able to surge forward and clearly win yourself a dinner. Either way, we're both winners because we're going to be able to sit and have a meal together
at Golden Steer.
Probably one of the better steakhouses in Las Vegas.
Without a doubt. But
the Tigers now 53-80.
Yep.
So I kind of broke it down. They have 9 games. I can't win 10 games is basically what I'm saying. But that's basically only 333 baseball. And right now for the season, they're at about 400 baseball. So I'm not really that far off. And so this could get really tight at the end. So basically, if we go 8-21 at the end of the season, which they have 29 games left, if they go 8-21, then I win. If they go 9-20, it's a push. Then we'll be sharing the bill. We'll split it, and then the other way. So, like I said, anyway, we're both winners. It's going to be great. And happy birthday, by the way, to my buddy over here. Yesterday was his birthday, and I appreciate that.
Yes.
61 years old.
Big 6'1".
Oh, beautiful. But, yeah, so anyways.
Before we go any further, if anybody's confused, as you all know, Jeff is from the D.
Yeah.
He is a Detroit fan. This is not his team that's on his hit list, and I'm not a Detroit hater. I just truly believe that they would not lose 100 games.
Well, and honestly, they're actually a worse team than their record because who knew that Chicago and KC were going to be so bad? I mean, so I would have never made the bet. If you would have told me that both of these teams were going to lose less than 60 games or be in the there literally could be 3 teams that lose 100 games in the same division.
This is
frightening. That is literally unheard of. And if you told me that was the case, I probably wouldn't have made that wager. But the fact that they beat each other
Yes.
is kind of the worst thing.
It's another one of these cannibalistic divisions that they just
For who's
sort of-
worse.
Well, really to see
Instead of the other ones are who's better.
who's got the White Sox or Kansas City this weekend, and so that we can absolutely rack up some wins.
So we have the Astros, who at one point had almost a 10-game lead.
Yep.
And Oakland just keeps coming back. Now they've got it down to 2.5 games.
Yep.
They're literally within one series of actually taking that. And we've seen teams be up 7-8 games towards the end of the season and actually lose the division.
Yeah.
So, this is where you want to be as a second-place team. You want to be in that, 1 to 3 or 4 games back, because that's like one good weekend, and you take it over.
Exactly. And being from LA, the Angels, the Anaheim Angels, again, this is a hugely disappointing year.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that given the fact that they got Ohtani, and the fact that he hurt his arm was one thing, but he still plays every day, or can play every day, because he swings a mean bat. This is still a very disappointing year for the Angels. But for Houston, again, they've sustained that ability to win. And I think that, but you're absolutely right. Oakland is really surprising. Oakland and Seattle are probably the two surprise clubs of Major League Baseball this year.
Yep.
I don't think anybody really gave. I think it was people were seriously discussing Houston and the Angels and Texas. But this is mind-boggling.
Yep. So to the National League, obviously the biggest surprise, now I'm not saying surprise now, but like from the beginning of the season, would be the East. The Phillies, we knew they were one of the worst teams in the league for probably 7-8 years.
Yeah.
Since the last time that they've played well at all. You have them just a couple games behind a young Atlanta Braves team.
Very young.
Which I'm still sold. And I'm going to say this, and this might be conspiracy and whatever you want to call it, but when teams get new stadiums, the team plays good. And I know it's so they can sell tickets to pay for that stadium. I'm telling you. And we'll find out, like when the see how the Golden Knights do this year. But
well, I think the biggest surprise, everybody expected Miami not to do well.
Right.
Because they were selling all talent, and this was clearly that. I don't think anybody had a clue as to just how poorly the New York Mets would play this year.
Yeah.
And still you've got David DeGrom, who is in the talks for the Cy Young Award. And you have to realize that this is a guy, you have to wonder how the hell is his record what it is at 8-8.
Yeah. Because
they give him no run support. They have very poor defense. But yet he's got, I think it's 1.7, 1.75 or 1.7 ERA.
It's amazing.
And he's actually in the discussions for Cy Young. And I think rightfully so.
Yeah.
I don't think it should be about a guy.
It's not always
with
the record. I mean, if you're putting those kind of numbers, if you're holding your opponent down to 2 runs, I mean, you should be able to win.
And when you go out there, it's like, man, it's me against the world.
Yep.
And I may have to get 2 or 3 hits of myself, just do my own dirty work.
Yeah.
But Washington, I'm as surprised at Washington as I am pleasantly surprised at Atlanta and Philadelphia. I'm really surprised because, again, this was supposed to be all of the components were in place. But, they're in 3rd place now, 8 games back. And
Which is still okay.
It's okay, but
they're running out of time.
They're running out of steam. Dusty Baker was fired at the end of last year.
Yeah.
And because they just couldn't get over the hump.
Yeah.
And but I think that again, given the enormous talent on that program, both in the bullpen, in the batting, defense, the whole 9 yards. What happened?
Well, Bryce Harper, the last year in his contract, will not be back. I think that when they threw him up on waivers already, and I think that there's been several teams that have already are going to be volleying for that. They're going to have to pay him some money. Oh, yeah. But the guy is obviously going to be able to produce. Strasburg, Schweitzer, those guys are not going to be around on a team. Those guys go to a team to win.
Yeah.
They're not going to want to re-sign contracts to be a team that wins, that goes 500. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, Max left Detroit, a team that had won like 3 out of 4. AL pennants,
Right.
to go on a team that would win the World Series, goes to Washington, pitches out of his mind,
Yeah.
and still does not win a World Series.
Yep.
It's very difficult for a guy like that to be in the World Series so many times without winning. It's gonna be hard to keep him in Washington.
Yeah. I mean, as far as Harper is concerned, I mean, where do you think possible destinations?
I think he's gonna go somewhere like the Dodgers.
Yeah.
I think he's gonna go somewhere where like he's instantly gonna be needed.
Yeah. And, close to home.
Yep.
Close to home.
Vegas guy.
Bryce, I'm putting it out there, buddy.
Yep.
Yeah, I certainly can't see the Angels.
No.
Because, well, first of all, you have Mike Trout.
Well, I mean, with him and Trout, I mean that's a powerhouse.
But
squad
given
right
the way the Angels are, and I'm not saying that they have this kind of management mentality like the old Florida Marlins,
Yeah.
win it and then start selling
Dump
people
'em,
off,
yeah.
dump them. But you have arguably one of the best players in baseball, and you just keep getting worse and worse and worse. I
Well,
think
they're actually
Socha has
only-
got to be. This has got to be his last year.
Wait, hold on. What is it? Their 5 game was under 500. Yeah, 5 games under 500. I didn't even see him being a 500 squad. So the fact that they're only 4 games back must have mean that they played Tigers well a couple of times.
He certainly can't play him that often.
That's right. So to the NL Central,
Yep.
another division that's tight.
Yeah.
You have the Cubs that are their 78 wins, 4 games ahead of the always right there, St. Louis
Always.
Cardinals. St. Louis
Always.
Cardinals, with the Brewers only a game and a half back from them.
Yes.
And you're talking about these are teams that, like, when you look at the playoff picture, 2 of these teams are actually in.
Yeah.
You have the Cubs or whoever the winner of the division in, but right now, St. Louis leads the wild card.
Yeah.
So a division that always is a competitive division.
And second place is Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's you could easily have this is one of these again. Chicago's kind of found their form.
Yeah.
After struggling to actually make the playoffs last year, after winning it all, they're there. But you wonder how far they can actually take this. They do have the best record in the National League right now.
Yes.
With 78 wins. But if Atlanta can continue this form, they've got to be that kind of Cinderella team this year
I
for the
love it.
National League.
I love the young
without
teams.
a doubt. I mean, just as Houston was last year in the American League, and especially after the hurricane down in Hurricane Harvey down in Houston, I think Atlanta would be that kind of feel-good team. The suddenly again new stadium and suddenly find their swing.
Well, I did see a picture yesterday which kind of like blew me away. It was the freeway, the main freeway that goes through Houston. I apologize, I don't remember the freeway. But the water level is literally up to the street sign.
Wow.
So you're talking about 10 feet,
At least
12 feet of water.
Yeah.
I was absolutely amazed by that because you kind of hear about like, hey, it rained a lot, hey, this hurricane and all this, but then when you see a picture like that, you're like,
Yeah,
that's pretty.
Yeah,
serious.
I think that the video footage that was coming out of there at that time. And by the way, since we're talking about Houston, the total numbers with J.J. Watt and his fundraising.
Oh yeah,
$41.5 million.
unbelievable.
Yeah, he was hoping for a couple of $100,000.
Yeah, I think he started it at like 500, then he raised it to $1 million, then $2 million. Next thing you know,
Yeah.
he's
So
at $40 million.
to J.J. Watt, man, listen,
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out, buddy. I mean, I will always be a J.J. Watt fan. Not necessarily a Texans fan, but I'm absolutely a J.J. Watt fan, and well done.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's great.
$41.5 million. Then we get, of course, to
The West.
the definition of mediocrity, the National League West.
Yep.
Arizona and Colorado tied 72-60. With the Dodgers are now 1 game back at 71-61. San Francisco, second from last, 4th place. They're only 6 games back.
Yep.
And in San Diego, 21.5 back. But
Well, not 6 games back, but also only 4 or 5 games back from the wild card.
yeah,
So San Fran has a shot. I mean, all of these teams in the division, except for, obviously the Padres, have a shot.
yeah. And, San Francisco is one of those kind of teams that I don't care where you are, who you are. If you're in the National League, you don't want the Giants to make the playoffs. because they have a way of winning.
Wait, is this odd year?
This is an even year.
Even year, okay.
And this is usually when they do well. It's even years. And they just find a way. Bruce Bochy is a great manager, and they have that ability. They've been there before. And if they can somehow, figure out a way to get in there and come in as a wild card team, they could absolutely surprise some people.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I just want my Dodgers to somehow get in the mix, get in the conversation. But it is the absolute definition of mediocrity.
Well,
the
I
National
keep
League West.
thinking at some point the Dodgers are going to try to pick up a closer, and I'm like, how did they not figure into this? I mean, I've seen them give away so many games at the end of the game. I mean,
Yeah.
how do you allow that to happen as a professional organization?
I don't know, and this has been a hugely disappointing year considering the success from last year.
Yeah.
And I'm a diehard Dodger fan. I bleed Dodger blue, and I always will, good, bad, or indifferent. But to say that I'm disappointed would be an understatement.
Yeah.
But I just hope that they can somehow, make something happen, have a little, just to get that wind to their back.
Well, I can tell you this, that I'm not in the past, in years past, I was the guy that watched all 162 games and was like,
Yeah.
Now I'm more like there's a lot of stuff going on. We grow up, we started having businesses, and we got other stuff going on. This is actually the time where I'm like, okay, we're in September now.
This is it.
So we get down to this last 30 days. We're gonna see where the cream really rises, and then we're gonna take it and see who's gonna be playing in October.
Yeah, as the older I've gotten, the more I just say, well, it's after the All-Star break, so now I can kind of really
Start paying attention.
concentrate on it. But but you're right. I remember that as a kid growing up, look forward to every game on the radio, and I knew who was going to be starting. I knew who the other starting pitchers were. I knew the lineups by heart.
Yep.
And now I've got to go online to figure out who's who. I don't know if it's memory or just I wouldn't say just a lack of energy, but I would just simply say that I just don't watch it as much as I. It's still my favorite sport. I just don't get into it like I really.
Well, I can tell you this: I could probably still give you the starting lineup for the '84 Tigers. and shout out to Alan Trammell for his Hall of Fame induct.
Here.
Yeah, I mean, finally, you're finally talking about a guy that was when you say a Tiger, this guy was drafted, picked up with Lou Whitaker. Brought him up into the Tiger organization, played his entire career with the Tigers, retires a Tiger. Still one of the best Tiger shortstops. Shout out to Alan Trammell.
Absolutely. I remember watching him play, and this is when they had those really hot teams, and this was like in the 80s, I want to say 82, between like 80 and 84, 85. Yep. But I didn't realize that he had played his entire career in the D. Yeah, more power to him. But
great.
Congratulations.
I love it.
So, that's kind of our, in terms of baseball, and needless to say, it is kind of getting down to the nitty-gritty. And as far as our bet is concerned, there are no losers going over the Golden Steer.
Golden Steer is the business.
All right. Now, I noticed that you're rocking the polo.
I'm rocking the polo. Yep.
LDFL. Yeah, and kind of bring us up to speed as to what's going on.
So the LDFL is a Labelle Developmental Football League, initially called the Labelle Community Football League. They've changed it up a little bit because they're actually changing the type of a ball that they want to play. They did it at first to be, the league that kind of keeps the guys off the street and kind of gives them a platform. It's now turning into like developing a player.
Right.
So right now, as it stands, we're sitting at 13 teams, which ultimately we will be weeding out probably a couple of the teams. And our number, like ironically enough, was 6 that we thought that we're going to be able to come on. That would be a 6 teams playing each other twice, a 10-game schedule. Mm-hmm. Either way, we're going to play a 10-game schedule. We're trying to either go with 6, possibly up to 11, but what's happening is like these teams are starting to hear about what we're doing, completely raising the standard as far as like what we expect from the owners,
right.
What we're expecting from the players, getting sponsors, selling tickets, having like events. Not just having a football game, but literally having an event where there's bounce houses for kids, there's food trucks, there's cheerleaders, there's halftime shows, which when we all watch the NFL, we think, well, that's the way it is. Of course, that's what it is.
Yeah.
But when you get down to the level of when you have like some ex-college players, some very good high school players that are still trying to get looks, there is a breakdown there. There's always been like a little gap, like a chasm.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to fill that chasm.
Well, one of the things that we talked about before is that it's the devil's in the details.
Yep.
And it's it is the behind the scenes. And from a league standpoint, we've seen it that the success is not because 1, 2, or 3 teams, have their SHIT together. It's when the league,
Yeah.
ensures that all of the teams are following an outline. This is, this is not, brand new. This is not like, reinventing sliced bread. The blueprint has always been there.
The
and
NFL.
it has been the NFL.
Yep.
And so, it's taking, it's not the, the capital. It's just basically getting the ownership to buy into the fact that unless if there's 10 teams or 5 teams or 6 teams, that everybody's working off the same playbook in terms of everybody needs to have a website, everybody needs to, to be on social media, but more importantly, people know when the games are.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have we tried here, unfortunately,
Too
locally,
many to answer.
to find out when teams are playing? You got to call around, you got to know somebody, and then, then maybe even sometimes the players themselves don't even know where.
They know what time, and that doesn't always kick off at that point.
Yeah, so it's but it is I think that with with you getting involved in it, Jeff, because
Hey, let's not blow.
but
the
also the fact that Tony Reed,
Yep.
longtime owner of the Inglewood Blackhawks, arguably one of the most successful minor league football team in the country. I think it's finally just enough. It's it's saying, look, if we're going to do this, let's do it right. And then I think that once people see that that this is okay, I can go there, I can enjoy this, and then just sharing the expenses in terms of having double and maybe triple header games.
Yes.
It becomes a real fan experience.
Absolutely. Well, not only that, but like you said, the website is huge, which actually is up. So if you want to take a look at it, it's ndflfootball.com. Or LDFL. LDFLfootball.com. I don't even know why I said N. I guess I'm stuck on NFL, but you can already see where it's starting to take form, and you can see like, okay, now there's some teams up there. Now we can click on it. Now we can see who the sponsors of the league are. Now we can see like where these games are going to be played. They're having a kickoff classic over Martin Luther King weekend. Where there's going to be some games that weekend, and it's going to be just kind of like showcase games, which is huge, because you're going to be able to get out there and see some of these teams perform. And you're talking about an event where it might cost you $5 to $10 to go and check it out.
Yeah.
Family of 4 can get in the game for $30 and like have some hot dogs or a truck or something's going to be there to serve some good food. So you're talking about an experience, not only that, but a community of players that are either trying to get looks or have already played college and just still trying to get out there and get in shape.
And these are all local guys.
Right.
I mean, they could be your neighbors and your friends. And in terms of, particularly with regard to like youth football, if there's an outing for like youth football teams where kids can, under a certain age can actually get in free, but at $5 a head, this is a deal and a half.
Yeah.
But and needless to say, really wish you luck. And
I'm gonna do my best, man.
Yeah. Listen, it's high time.
Yep.
And knowing you the way I know you over the years, it's you're not going to take any crap.
Well, I think that's the reason why they brought me in. Actually, which is really kind of terrible in a sense, because there's a really good chance that I'm going to have to be a bad guy and I'm going to have to make decisions. But like anyone that really knows me knows that I really don't have that much problem with that.
No, you don't.
And unfortunately, like I don't always make the best friend. Like Bill, you've been my friend for a long time, but a lot of people don't like to be around me because I tell them like how it is and they don't like that. So like I think that the guys that brought me into this league realize that I am a guy that's not going to waver. It's not going to be a decision based upon like whether I like this guy or whether I like this guy, who I like better. We're establishing rules. We're establishing the facts. Those are what I'm going to go off of. Everything's going to be based upon that. There's going to be no nonsense, no fighting, none of the other stuff that's been, in some of these leagues sometimes.
Completely unacceptable
There
behavior.
literally will be a hammer that will be dropped. And not because I have anything against any player. It's merely because I want the best, and I want this to be a platform where a family can go and watch a game and have a good time without some of the other stuff that has happened in the past.
It's about accountability.
Right.
And also at the same time, it's about having an independent voice, and that is not having a team and not having a dog,
Right.
in the fight. And I think that that's always been an issue, assigning someone who's a team owner to actually be a commissioner or president of a league.
Yeah.
It makes little or no sense, but
Well, the good thing about this particular league is even though there will be an independent commissioner, there will actually be a governing board as well.
Right.
So it's not going to be like just somebody that's running free-for-all. There is literally going to be a board of people that all this stuff's going to go through in order to even get to that final decision. So, I mean,
Absolutely.
I might be the guy that's like maybe making the final decision, but it may not be completely my sole decision. It'll be like based upon, us having a player association, which is literally unheard of at that level. So listening to the voice of the players, listening to what the voice of what the owners want, and then taking that to a governing body and just having one person that's going to make a final decision.
Yeah.
I think, again, I'm hoping that I can do everything that I'm supposed to do, but I can tell you that whatever I decide and the decisions that are going to be made are going to be based upon the facts and the rules.
and I don't think we can ask for much more than that.
Yep.
Yeah.
'Cause that's what I'm going to do.
Well, I absolutely wish you luck, my man.
Yep. I might actually need some luck, and some prayers.
And the prayers. Absolutely. Nothing wrong with that. Well, listen, folks, it's been once again, it's been a great show, and the hour has absolutely flown by as usual. Join us next Wednesday. I believe it'll be September 5th, and we'll be back at 6 p.m. Pacific
Yes.
Daylight Time. And I think we're going to, hopefully, I think if I'm not mistaken, and Jorge is in agreement on this. I think we're going to be doing our NFL preseason show. So join us. Again, Southern Nevada Sports News coming to you from WWDBTV.com. Have a great week.
God bless.